Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm Alex, and today you're listening to an episode that might completely change the way you look at history. Because today, we're stepping into the life of a man whose name, even after centuries, still creates debate, awe, and sometimes fear. Timur the Lame, Tamerlane. But before we talk about Timur himself, we need to understand the world he was born into. A world full of chaos, meaning complete disorder. A world where nothing was secure or permanent. Earth. The 14th century. The century of iron men. 14th century Central Asia was a frontier world, a rough, unpredictable borderland where power shifted constantly. The great Mongol Empire, once the most powerful empire in the world, was falling apart. And when a giant empire collapses, a power vacuum appears, meaning a space with no clear ruler. And a power vacuum always means one thing. Everyone grabs a sword and tries to rule. Tribes fought each other. Borders shifted every month. And ordinary people lived in constant fear. This was the world that shaped young Timur.
And stomp after a long journey. Stars shined like blades in the vast sky. And on that night, a child was born. A child who centuries later would be known across continents by different names. Timur, Timur the Lame, Timur Gorkany, Tamerlane. No one could have guessed that this newborn would reshape the destiny of a huge part of the world. Baby. Young Timur, different from the start. Timur belonged to the Barlas tribe, a tribe with Mongol roots but strongly influenced by Turkic and Persian culture. Because of this, Timur grew up speaking several languages: Turkic, Mongolian, Persian. And Alex, this is important because later in his rise to power, this multilingual advantage, meaning the ability to speak multiple languages, helped him unify different people under one rule. The School of the Steppe. In the Central Asian steppe, there were no classrooms, no teachers, no textbooks. But there was the harshest school on earth, the school of survival. Before children could even walk properly, they learned to ride horses. This skill is known as horsemanship, mastery of horse riding and control. Hunting, archery, and hand-to-hand combat weren't special lessons. They were daily life. To grow up in such a world, you either became steel or you broke early. Timur became steel. The first sparks of ambition. Even as a teenager, Timur showed signs of an unusual character. He was quiet but ambitious, meaning determined to achieve greatness. He observed everything carefully and saw the world with the eyes of a future leader, not an ordinary tribal youth. At only 15 or 16, he gathered a small group of young warriors around him. Not an army, just 10 to 15 loyal fighters. But this small band would one day become the core of an army that would shake continents. Blood, the wound that created destiny. During a local conflict, a sword or arrow struck Timur's right leg. Another injury hit his arm. These wounds never fully healed, and Timur was left with a slight limp. People called him Timur Long, Timur the Lame. Europeans later wrote it as Tamerlane.
But here's the interesting part. Timur transformed this injury into a symbol of strength. In steppe culture, a man who fought despite pain was seen as a true hero. His limp became part of his legend, a reminder that even the greatest warriors carry scars. In this section, we explored the world that shaped Timur, a world of chaos, violence, and hidden opportunity. In the next section, we'll dive into Timur's early adulthood, his first real battles, his rise as a political figure, and how a young tribal fighter became a regional power.
Part 2. Timur's Ascent, the beginning of a legend. In this part, we explore the moment when Timur's life shifted from that of an ordinary young man on the steppes of Transoxiana into that of a major force in politics and war. This is the heart of the story. The phase where Timur transforms from a minor tribal warrior into a rising regional power. Along the way, you learn English while experiencing one of history's most thrilling narratives. The beginning, when the world was burning. The 14th century was an age of collapse, but what was a sign of fear for most people was a golden opportunity for Timur. The Chagatai Mongol Empire was disintegrating. Khans fought generals, generals fought khans, and the people were trapped in endless chaos. In such disorder, one only needed a dream and a sword. Timur had both.
Forming the Wolfpack, the birth of his warrior band. Around the age of 20, Timur formed his first band of loyal warriors. They were young, ruthless, fast, and hungry for power. Timur led them in small raids, not for wealth, but for reputation, power, and influence. His first major battle, a wound that became legend. Timur fought in a major battle under Amir Hussein and was severely wounded. The injury remained with him for life and earned him the name Timur the Lame. But more important than the wound was the reputation he gained as a fearless survivor. This injury did not weaken him, it forged a legend. Alliance with Amir Hussein, a dangerous partnership. After Kazaghan's death, Timur allied himself with Amir Hussein, a powerful yet proud and suspicious man. Their alliance multiplied Timur's strength, but it was like a quiet fire under the ashes, a fire destined to erupt.
Two suns cannot share one sky. Both men were ambitious, but unlike Amir Hussein, Timur's ambition was disciplined and strategic. Tension rose, the gap widened, and eventually the hidden fire burst into open conflict. Castle, the decisive Battle of Balk, Timur's turning point. Timur and Amir Hussein, once allies, now stood face to face as enemies. The roar of horses, the clash of armies, and the plains of Balk prepared to witness a historic decision. By sunset, the outcome was clear. Timur had won, Amir Hussein was defeated, and the path was opened for Timur to become the supreme ruler of the region. Crown. Timur's unofficial coronation. Although Timur never assumed the formal title of Khan, he became the de facto ruler of Transoxiana. He now held a level of power only one step away from founding a global empire. Book. Summary of Part 1 and Part 2. Check. Part 1 in brief. We entered the chaotic world of the 14th century, explored Timur's youth, learned about his famous injury, saw how he developed skills in leadership and warfare. Check. Part 2 in brief. Timur formed his first warrior band, allied with Amir Hussein, tensions grew and erupted. In the Battle of Balk, he defeated Amir Hussein and rose as the true ruler of Transoxiana.
Part 3.
Timur and the dawn of world conquest. After Timur defeated Amir Hussein and secured control over Transoxiana, the real game began. A game in which the entire world was the stage and Timur was the central actor. In the previous part, we saw how he rose from a young commander to the true ruler of his homeland. But that was only the beginning. A world on the edge of collapse. The 14th century was a century of chaos, not for one country, but for almost the entire region. Nothing was stable. The Ilkhanate in Iran had collapsed. Dozens of mini-states fought for control. Trade routes were unsafe. People were exhausted from endless conflict. Important word. Fragmented means broken apart, unstable. The world at the time was deeply fragmented, and Timur thrived in fragmentation. Step 1. Unifying the core. Timur understood something crucial. You cannot conquer the world if your own backyard is full of rebels. So his first mission was eliminate internal threats, unite the tribes, and establish absolute authority. Not partially, absolutely. Important word. Consolidate power means stabilize and strengthen your authority. Timur began by consolidating power inside Transoxiana.
Building the Timurid army, a war machine like no other. Timur was not just a warrior, he was an architect of military power. He built a multi-ethnic army consisting of Turks, Mongols, Persians, Sogdians, mercenaries from India and China, and he ran it like a perfectly engineered machine. Important word. Multi-ethnic army equals an army made up of different ethnic groups. This multi-ethnic army became the secret behind Timur's success. The conquests begin. First target, Khorasan. After securing Transoxiana, Timur turned toward Khorasan, one of the most important regions of the Islamic world. Why Khorasan? Strategic location, immense wealth, powerful cities, cultural significance. Important word. Strategic equals essential, important, advantageous. Khorasan was deeply strategic, and Timur did not ignore anything strategic. The conquest of Herat, the jewel of Khorasan. Herat was one of the richest, most beautiful cities of the region. Its people believed they could stand firm, but they underestimated Timur. The siege was short, the resistance weak, and Timur entered the city with power and precision. Important word, siege, surrounding a city to force its surrender. Herat fell after a short siege. Timur's policy, between mercy and terror. Many people think Timur only destroyed cities. That is not true. His system was far more complex. Timur followed two clear policies. If a city surrendered peacefully, he protected it, improved markets, supported scholars and artists, organized taxes. If a city resisted him, the punishment was severe and unforgettable. This combination, mercy and terror, was his signature strategy. Important word, policy, is a method, plan, or strategy. His policy of mercy and terror was extremely effective. Timur's relationship with scholars. One of the most interesting facts about Timur is his respect for scholars. In Herat, he expanded libraries, invited scholars to his court, supported poets and writers. Because of these policies, Herat later became one of the greatest cultural centers of the world. Important word, scholars, means learned people, academics. Timur always valued scholars. Why did Timur invade Iran? After Khorasan, Timur marched toward Iran. But why? Because Iran, after the collapse of the Ilkhanate, was split into many small, weak states. Timur believed as long as Iran remains divided, the entire region will remain unstable. Important word. Unstable means shaky, insecure, unpredictable. Iran at that time was unstable, and Timur sought to bring it under control. First target in Iran, Sistan, land of ancient heroes and legends, became Timur's first major confrontation in Iran.
Its ruler decided to resist. A fatal mistake. Timur launched a fast, decisive attack and took Sistan with shocking speed. Important word. Swift attack is fast, sudden attack. The conquest of Sistan was a textbook example of a swift attack.
March toward Ray, Isfahan, and Shiraz. After Sistan, Timur moved toward the cultural centers of Iran. Ray, little resistance. Isfahan, one of Timur's toughest challenges. The city rebelled several times, and Timur never forgot it. Important word. Uprising equals organized revolt. Isfahan saw multiple uprisings. Shiraz, a peaceful, cultured city. Poets and scholars came out to greet Timur. To everyone's surprise, Timur behaved with great courtesy. He famously said, "I love Shiraz for its knowledge and poetry."
End of Part 3, An Empire Rising. By the end of Part 3, Timur had stabilized Transoxiana, conquered Khorasan, taken Sistan, marched through Iran, created an army admired and feared everywhere, and laid the foundation for a global empire.
Well, dear listeners, the first 3 parts of today's podcast have come to an end. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes.